All right, everybody. Let's talk about this thing. Welcome to the Viva Connections SharePoint Framework bi-weekly sync. It's me, Chris Kent, and I'm hoping you're going to listen better than these two dopes who aren't even paying attention to that poor lady drawing on the board. That's a great meeting right there. All right, let's keep going. So today we got a bunch of stuff for you. We've got about 10 hours of updates on things. Then we're going to do a together mode thing where we take a picture of your faces. And then we've got three wonderful presenters, I hope. We got Daniel Turley, we got Dee, and we got Dan Toft here. They're going to talk about all sorts of awesome things related to the SharePoint framework and other fun things. So check them out. And but first, let's get started and talk about some resources we have available to you. So you can always go here to our aka ms/community/home, and you can find all the links to all of these things. But basically, there's just a ton of resources and samples and open source repositories for you. And if something's missing, let us know, add it, reach out, give us feedback. The whole point of this is not from Microsoft, right? This is a community-driven initiative. I don't work for Microsoft. We're just trying to get this, make our jobs all a little bit easier, right? Just trying to work together, find a better way to do all this stuff. So if you got some ideas, share them. All right. Now let's take a look over here. We have these community calls. So you're already on one, so that's half the battle right there. There's a bunch of these, check them out. If you just go to that main link right there, that aka.ms/community/calls, you can find links to join all of these, add them to your calendar, whatever you want to do. A lot of these, they happen various times. We do have one that's Microsoft only presenters. It's on Tuesdays. That is on hold for right now until the 22nd of August. But all the other ones are happening just fine. That's 7 a.m. or 10 a.m. Eastern if you're like me. Or if you need to figure out the other time, I guess, ask ChatGPT. All right, here we go. And then finally, if you do want to present, you want to be one of these wonderful demo presenters, fill out this form here. Everyone is welcome. We'll get you scheduled on the call. Happy to walk you through it. We're happy to review slides, talk about what goes into it. It doesn't have to be very scary. We can hold your hand the whole way, or we can just let you go. It's up to you and what you want to do there. All right, David, you want to talk about sharing is caring?
I absolutely do, Chris. Thank you. So, Friend Sharing is Caring is back. We know we've been having it on hold for a while, trying to get things ready to go, but it is back. We just had a session yesterday on Power Platform Samples Contributor. It was fantastic. About 20 or 30 joined, and it was a nice safe space opportunity. So you might be wondering, what is it? If you're new to the call, it is a safe space opportunity to learn how to contribute together in a hands-on guidance situation. So we're going to join a Teams call. We're going to learn how to do things like GitHub and pull requests, how to set up your SPFx samples or how to use those samples. So don't hesitate. We're scheduling them more. We've started using Teams Webinar. They're absolutely free, safe space. There are no recordings going on, so you're safe to ask any and all questions that you would like. So definitely check that out, aka.ms/sharing is caring. We already have the next Power Platform samples set up in August, and we will have more scheduled here soon. Then, once you do contribute, we absolutely want to recognize you. So our recognition program is still around. Unlike some others, we are here to promote and recognize the great work you're doing. We've got a lot of new hackathon badges coming up, some thematic badges coming up for the rest of the year. And we are excited as we get closer to the end of this month to see all of those badges going out. So if you haven't opted in, go check out ak.ms/community/recognition. It's absolutely no cost. And we're starting to use MailChimp now to kind of recognize or manage all of that for your email. So if you need to update it or change your Credly email or your GitHub profile, absolutely able to do that. Chris, back to you.
All right, badges. And then let's talk about some of our updates. Let's get some SharePoint framework updates from the actual engineering team. Alex, you got it?
Yep. So hello, everyone. First of all, we have SharePoint Framework 1.18 beta preview. Currently, we are on beta 2. And if you go to the next slide, please. Yep. So in this beta, we are providing new possibilities for the adaptive cart extensions. So the first one is People Search Cart. It's a new template where you have a search box in the body, plus you have a kind of persona cart or whatever you want. You can use it for documents, for whatever. In the footer, we also provide an extra possibility to have text inputs. in the cards as well. And as you can see on these screenshots, you can place it in the body or in the footer too. Next slide, please. Monthly active users still growing. Currently in July, as always, it's a little bit slowed down. So we are kind of on the same numbers for the June-July time frame. Next slide. And what we're currently having in the SharePoint framework. So the GA version is 1.17.4. It's the latest production-ready version. And as I mentioned, we have 1.18 beta 2. We have new possibilities for ACE platform, new components in there. And one more feature that was added explicitly in beta 2 is support for dark mode in Viva Connections mobile. Now in the ACE API, through the context of the ACE, you can check what theme you are in the VTM, and, for example, change your images, this kind of stuff, to look great both in normal theme and dark theme. Next slide. I don't know if I'm done or no.
You are done.
Oh, cool.
All right. So awesome. So we got a bunch of awesome stuff from the SharePoint framework, a bunch of updates. Let's actually talk about what we can do with all that stuff using different open source projects. Julie, you got some PnPjs stuff for us here?
I always have some PnPjs stuff. So we were a little late this month in releasing 3.17, but it did get out. We had some vacations blocking our release on time, but we got it out on July 24th. So that was Monday. We have, well, and the upside of that is we got a few more things in. So we have a bug fix for batching for both Graph and SharePoint. They had a scenario where you could end up with incorrect headers. So that got addressed. We addressed a deprecated endpoint in the OneDrive analytics. At some point, for some reason, analytics got removed from the root drive endpoint, and so that wasn't even working. So I just flat out removed it. The other one is still in there. That's on drive item, has analytics, and they've added analytics for sites and lists, I believe. So we're going to add that in V4. So that's where that's headed. So we'll move analytics out into its own thing in V4. And so all the analytics will then be available. We fixed an issue with channel message and Teams, fixed issues with the browser console logging level in the PnP logging package. There was tons of documentation updates, including a more extensive piece of documentation on using the internals of the library to make calls to other endpoints that aren't supported by the library. So if you want to use, SPGet or GraphGet to make calls to other endpoints that we haven't implemented yet, there's now documentation on how to do that. And finally, we implemented new issue form templates. So the issue templates are now forms, and it makes it a lot easier to submit your question or issue or bug or whatever in a more complete way so that we can help you quicker. That version 4 is underway. You can look at issue number 2678 for the planning board. And as always, if you are interested in a update that got merged but is not released yet, you can use those V3 nightly builds, and we'll shortly be coming up with V4 nightly builds, so like a beta build, so that you can check out some of the V4 work as it's going on. And that is all I have. Back to you, Chris.
Woo! And now to Gary. Gary?
Cheers, Chris. Next slide. There we go. Cool. Thank you. So, hello, everyone. So we've got a new beta release of CLI for Microsoft 365. So we've got an important bug fix for Azure AD command for the SPO site at permission add, where it didn't actually work, but now it's fixed. But we've got updates for Planner, Power Apps, latest support for upgrading projects to the latest version of the beta version of SharePoint Framework, a new Teams command as well to add a member to a chat. We've also got V7 branch that's been started, so we're looking towards the next major version as well. So keep an eye on the repo for any of the changes that we might be introducing. As always, we'll provide documentation to make sure that your upgrade path is as smooth as possible. If you want to test out the latest beta, you can get the beta package from npm using next tag, and you can also use our Docker container as well, where you can run that isolated in your own Docker container. If you're interested in getting involved in the community for CLI for Microsoft 365, then best place to go is to our Discord server. So you can get the join link, aka.ms/CLI-M365/Discord. And if you are still on Twitter, X, you can follow us at CLI Microsoft 365. On to the next slide, please, Chris. Okay, so today we have a new release of Microsoft 365 Developer Proxy. So we've released 0.10. That's available now. In this release, we have extended the functionality that we had already, the minimal permissions plugin and random errors plugin for Graph, which now support batching. So that was an important milestone. We're going to continue with adding support for batching into other plugins as well. So we want to call out thanks to James Love, who was suggested the feature for batching, and also Darren Miller from the Graph team to help us kind of implement that as well. We've also had improvements made to the select guidance plugin as well. So now we actually use the Graph metadata to actually return correct guidance, whereas before it was, the guidance wasn't great, but now we can actually say this endpoint actually does have the select parameter available for it. And we've got a few of the bug fixes in there as well. Like I mentioned, top of mind, we're going to support more batching. We're looking at CI/CD support and some Playwright integration as well. And the next release will be due at the end of next month. Back to you, Chris.
Classic Gary. I like that. Yeah, it wasn't so great, but now it's correct.
It's better.
All right, let's talk about reusable SharePoint framework controls. Alex, what you got?
Yep, we have new releases. The new releases were done on July 18th, both for React controls and property controls. For React controls, we have new term set navigation control that you can see on the screenshot right here. We have a bunch of different enhancements and, of course, various bug fixes. Same for property controls, enhancements and fixes are there. As always, special thanks to all our contributors, because most of these enhancements, new components, etc., are coming from them, not from our team. So thank you very, very much for that. And back to you, Chris.
All right. Looks like I'm talking about this one. So we got the Viva Connections Toolkit for VS Code. You haven't checked it out. You want to check that out. It gives you a lot of opportunities to kind of guided project generation and so on. And there you go. Read that screen and pause the video if you need to read it more. All right, let's go. All right, let's talk about PnP Modern Search. So this stuff's awesome. There was an update back in June with a bunch of features there. If you zoom in really, really close on this slide, you can read all of that. Or, you can just go over to the repo and read the releases there. But I think there was a minor update last week, but this thing continues to get all sorts of updates. If you haven't used this yet, do check it out. It's going to give you a lot of that power that maybe you're missing from the out-of-the-box experience. All right, David, what we got?
Yes, so I'm just filling in for Hugo today as he's out. We've got plenty of opportunities for SPFx extensions and web parts. He's processing all that, everybody, so thank you for your patience. And you are more than welcome to contribute new samples. And again, if you're new to this and want to know how to do GitHub, then check out our Sharing is Caring. The principles that you learn there aren't just for Power Platform. They are for all of GitHub, and they'll assist you with contributing to these repos as well. And to cover ACEs we're bringing in Derek Cash-Peterson. So he's going to start covering ACEs. He's been working hard behind the scenes on all the PR. So Derek?
Yep. So in the ACEs repo, in addition to all the great samples that Alex just showed about with the new functionality in 1.18, we have 2 updates to most liked pages and the weather cards. Some of these were to fix bugs, and others were just enhanced functionality to add SharePoint pages. In addition to myself, we brought on Anoop Tati to be a co-maintainer with me as well. So if you've got some samples for ACEs, or you just want to see how to leverage Viva Connections better, check out the repo, and we love new samples.
All right, everybody. Time to turn on your camera, and we're going to take your photo, prove you were here. All right, then you can print that out and put it on your wall. It'll be great. All right, so David, are you switching over to the together mode here?
I am. So I've got that switched
Okay,
over.
good.
Let me start share my screen, and so everybody can see. So Teams is lagging. All right, excellent. So still got some room, plenty of room in the seats. It just auto expands up to 50. So go ahead and turn those cameras on, everybody. Got a few more seats left, plenty of time. And all right, wow, look at it. We're getting a wave going on, like a virtual wave. So pretty cool. Okay, all right, we are recording. So let's wave or whatever you want to wave, however you want to wave. Show the community how awesome you are. Really appreciate everybody being here and all that you do for the community. All right, we got it captured. Chris, take it on back over.
All right, so today we have, we're going to start off with Daniel Turley. So Daniel, you there? Share the screen here and show us what you got.
Hello, thanks, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hi, my name is Dan Turley, and I'm a full-stack developer at Avanade. I've been working with SharePoint for over 10 years, most recently as part of the Productivity Studio, utilizing SharePoint framework to build business apps. Today, I will show you the schema provisioning feature of our SPFx solution Accelerator. But first, as always, a quick overview of the Accelerator. It's a set of patterns, reusable code, components, and tools that are created for building business apps on the SharePoint platform. It has evolved over the last 6 years, and we have used it in the Productivity Studio to build a dozen business apps in that time. The Accelerator is open source, and we have published a complete app to demonstrate its features. The SharePoint framework sample is named React Rhythm of Business Calendar. The Accelerator has the following high-level features. We have guidelines for solution structure to organize your domain model, services, components, and schema. We have a robust domain entity model with features like change tracking, validation, and relationships. There's also a services framework with provided services for SharePoint list data, time zones, users and groups, and more. We also have dynamic provisioning of SharePoint lists for app setup and upgrade experiences. And this is what I'll be talking about today. There are also React components for view and update panels and dialogues, asynchronous data, live update controls, a wizard, and more. We have tooling to support development teams and environments. And last but not least, live update ensures your users are always collaborating with the latest data. All right, schema provisioning. With the SPFx solution Accelerator is done in 2 steps. The first is to declare your schema with all of your elements, such as fields, lists, and views. And then you run the provisioner to create those elements on the SharePoint site. We have interfaces that help you define all of your schema elements in a type-safe manner. An app will have one schema object, which should implement I-element definitions. This interface expects you to specify the version of the schema, which is used when performing app upgrades. It also references each of the lists that are in your schema, and those lists then reference your views and fields. After defining your schema object, elsewhere in your code, you'll want to instantiate the element provisioner class and call the ensure elements method, passing in your schema object. This method ensures all of the elements in your schema exist on the current site, and if they don't, it creates them. Under the hood, of course, we use the PnPjs library for creating all of these schema elements. But the difference here is, since PnPjs is a thin wrapper for the REST API, it's an imperative model, whereas what we've created here is a declarative model. And veterans of SharePoint development will also remember creating elements XML files to declare list instances and other schema elements, which you can do in SPFx as well. But we think this approach is pretty neat because using the declarative approach with the addition of compile time type checking to define your elements, but then using imperative code for the actual provisioning enables more dynamic scenarios. So let's look at how we define a field for our schema. The first example here is the location field, which is going to be a simple single line text field. We use the matching interface, in this case, iTextField definition, to help us define the object that describes our field. This allows us to do compile time type checking and ensure we are correctly specifying all the properties for our field. The next example is a date time field. You'll notice the name is event date, but the display name is start time. When creating a field, the element provisioner will first create the field using the name property, which will become the field's internal name in SharePoint. And then the provisioner will update the name of the field using the display name value, so you can have a more user-friendly name in the SharePoint interface. If you want the internal name and display name to be the same, or you don't care about the display name, that property is completely optional for all of the field types. In our last example, we are creating a user field. This field will allow multiple values, but it will only allow the user to select accounts and not groups. As you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, we support nearly every major field type in SharePoint, including numbers, choice fields, yes, no, lookups, taxonomy, even ratings. All right, let's look at how we define a view. As you can see, it's similar to the other types of schema elements. We have an interface, iView definition, which keeps everything type safe. We have standard options like giving your view a title, specifying how many rows to return, and if that view limit is a hard limit or if it should return paged results, and whether or not this is the default view on the list. The fields property is actually an array of the fields to show in the view, and these are objects like the ones we saw on the previous slide. We have a couple of helper functions. In this case, we're using one named include standard view fields. What this does is automatically include the title field and some other metadata fields that are needed for loading and persisting entities, as well as the functioning of the live update feature. And you can also specify a query for the view using good old camel syntax. In this example, we're setting a default sort order, but you can also use this for grouping and filtering. All right, last, we want to define a list. The interface for lists is iList definition. We have title, description, and template fields. The supported templates are generic list, document library, picture library, and the events list. The dependencies property enables you to specify other lists that this list depends on. And the element provisioner will take care to provision the lists with respect to any dependencies. So for instance, in this example, this is the refiner values list has a lookup column to the refiners list. That's the field underscore refiner field. So we would need the refiners list to be built first before we try creating the lookup column in this list. All right, there are a couple more advanced features I want to highlight when you're defining a list. So this is the same list definition from the previous slide, but I removed all the standard properties so we can focus on these two properties here. The first property is list items, and this allows you to add some default list items when the list is created. The next property allows you to configure permissions for the list. If you specify permissions, the provisioner will automatically break role inheritance on the list and performs the specified role operations, such as adding the site owners group with a role of administrator to the list permissions. You can also specify custom SharePoint groups here. All right, let's see a quick demo of schema provisioning. Okay, I have here a SharePoint site I created, and I just want you to note that the site contents shows us all the default libraries and lists that every site has when it's first created. There are no other custom lists in this site. And I'm going to go over to the home page. I have the Rhythm of Business Calendar web part added to this page. And since there are no lists in this site, it's going to run the first run wizard experience. And what I'm going to do is click this Let's Go button. And what this does is we'll use the element provisioner we were just looking at and using the schema defined in the app to configure all of the lists and views and fields that we need to run this app on the site. So in a moment, once everything is provisioned, the main screen of the app will get displayed. And so now what I'm going to do is switch back over to the site contents and refresh. And we can see now various lists were created for the ROB calendar. And I'm going to look at the settings for one of these lists. You can see a few columns of various types were created on this list. And also a couple of views were created. All right. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much. And back to you, Chris.
All right. Thank you very much, Daniel. Appreciate it. Next, we're going to head over and hear from Dee. Dee is a first-time presenter today. She'll talk about the Azure App Manager web part. Dee, you ready to go? You excited?
Yep, Chris. Thank you so much.
Woo. Go ahead and share your screen, and it's all yours.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. So I am a Diksha Bhura, and I am Microsoft 365 consultant. I started my journey with SharePoint 5 years ago and still going. So I'll be presenting you a SPFx web part where I'm showing all the Azure apps from Active Directory, which allows us to create a new app, also allow us to update an existing app. So it mainly uses Microsoft Graph Client and some Fluent UI controls, React.js. So I'll show you some demo.
Hey, oh, we lost your screen shared there, Dee?
Yeah, I was just changing the screen.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So here's the web part. Here are the Azure Active Directory apps. When I click on the title of the app, it will redirect me to the page, Azure portal, and I'll be able to update anything into the app. So if I want to create a new app, I'll simply register a new app with some name. And here I can select the account type for my app, and I can register. Once it gets added, I need to refresh it. Then we will have this in our okay, it is not loading. Yeah, so if simply if I go to the link again, I can delete directly from the portal. Okay. I will share my screen again. So here's the code to get all the apps here. I'm using Graph
Hey,
Client.
Dee, could you,
Yeah, hello.
you hit the presenter mode for us, please? So it makes it a little bigger for us all. Just
Sorry?
hit the, if you could present the slides, that'd be great. Just hit the little present button down there. Oh, that's all right. I don't want to interrupt the flow. We can just keep going then.
Should I continue?
Yes, please do. That's fine.
Okay. So here I'll show the code to get all the 8 apps. And I'm getting that using the Graph Client. If you can see here, the Graph Client by adding calling the applications API. And here I'm processing the data, which is moving to the state. And then I'm getting all the details like owner of the app by calling the API with application and owner of the ID of the owner. And then I'm processing all the owners to show into the web part. And using document card control of Fluent UI, I am displaying all the applications to the web part. So to register a new app, I'm using a Graph Client API applications again, and I am passing new details, which includes display name of the app and sign in audience of the app to the Graph Client, and I'm getting back the result, the ID of the app. So that was it from my side.
Great, thanks so
Chris.
much.
Back to you.
Yeah. All right, so David's got some links for everybody down there posted in the chat. So please check some of those out, and we'll go ahead and move to our third demo. Great job. And let's talk with Dan here. He's got a JSON form builder using SharePoint Framework. Dan, go ahead and take over whenever you're ready.
Absolutely. I will share my screen. There we go. I think everybody should be able to see something now.
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, awesome. My name is Dan. I am a Microsoft 365 consultant based in Denmark. I come from a dev background. I do a little bit of consulting, a little bit of dev work. I have a blog that's over at blog.dantoft.dk. And I'm active over in that new social media thing called X, where I'm at Tandan. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions regarding what you're going to see today. So I figured that I should start off by covering what is the problem I'm trying to resolve with this sample. So I often run into clients who need they need some kind of form to gather in information that their employees are filling out. And the SharePoint list or Microsoft lists is a great way to do that, but it doesn't always like build like full experience where the form is neatly organized the way they want it. You can do some things with view formatting, especially if you're Chris Kent, you can definitely do something. But it's just not as intuitive for the end user to set up these forms. So I wanted to build a solution where they don't have to worry about how they're going to gather the data. They just have to build the form. And then I discussed it with my boss, who said, you can't do that. That would take months to build, which for anyone who knows me is the best way to get me to spend 3 nights working on something, doing it. So I got to coding. As I was building the solution, the Microsoft 365 conference went ahead, and Microsoft actually announced that they were going to be doing something. So I thought I'd bring that in here just for show. This isn't my stuff. This is what Microsoft announced. But I thought it was pretty neat, and it looks a lot more sleek than the stuff I built. So I figured I would have that in there as well. Yeah. And there's a blog post somewhere. I could probably top that in the chat afterwards to the thing that Microsoft said around this thing. But I figured we should just go right ahead and go into the demo of what it is that I built and what it does. So I don't know if you can see the window I just dragged on top there.
Yep, shows up.
Yeah, awesome. Perfect. So this is essentially the concept. So we have this form that we can fill that out. I can go around and do stuff here. It will show a new field if I said yes to this one, that sort of stuff. If you set a bunch of things, it's able to like dynamically change the form a little bit. And if I fill out everything here, we can go ahead and do that. I can submit the form. Right now, there's an alert. Don't worry about that. That's from my debugging earlier that I didn't remove before I published. And it will create a link, which includes the actual response, which means I can share this link. And others are able to like see the same thing. They can see the response. Now that's pretty cool in and of itself, but I mean, this is just a static form. That isn't that cool. So what I think is really cool about this, if I go in here on a blank SharePoint page, we can go ahead and we can insert the form. And this is where stuff gets cool. So we choose a document library. I said list, it's a document library where we want our responses to be stored for now. Then we're going to go ahead and we're just going to click here. We can add different types of fields. We'll do a few of these. We can make a group, which can contain several fields. So we could do the classic like first name and a last name, just for some like basic stuff here. Then we can go ahead and we can add another field that could be conditional, and it could say if your first name is Dan, we want to do something inside of this. So this is a design sort of inspired by what we know from like Power Automate or Logic apps, where you can see there's a border around, just sort of limiting like what we can see. So we could do something like this. And we can essentially just keep going here, build out this thing. There's conditional fields, groups, there's multi-choice, bunch of fields that we know from like SharePoint already. We could go like this, hit save, and publish that. And there we go, now we have a form. And if I enter my name as Dan, we'll see that that label thing appears because that's conditionally based on that name. We can fill this form out and it works just the same. And there we go. Now, something that I thought was pretty cool about this that we don't get with Microsoft Lists is we can save this URL now. I'll open that in another tab just so we have it. We can go back in here to the like plain form. We can change the form. Let's go ahead and add another field. That could just be a number. How old are you? Save that. And that's now here. But if we go back to the other thing, so this is the form that was submitted earlier, and refresh that, it will still remember what the form looked like at that time. So this is done in a way where I actually save like the schema for the form as well as your response, so that we can make sure that we can show exactly what was happening when you filled out the form initially. Let's take a look at like how the responses are stored. Currently, that is a bit of a hacky way, and I'm not quite happy with it, but it works. So I'm essentially just generating a JSON file, and I'm dumping that in the document library. Here we can see the schema for the fields, which is simply just some like made-up schema that I came up with, where each field has an ID that is essentially like the field's internal name mapping to somewhere else. So this is a field group that doesn't use anything, but if we take this one, which is the first name, we can see that down here, the response was Dan. And we can see that there's a lookup field for that in the conditional field, and the match value is Dan. So this is just really basic like JSON schema structure to generate the like how the form should look in the end. And then because I store everything together, that makes me able to display the form exactly as it was at the time. Yeah. So let's close the demo down and move on to talk about which like field types. We saw that earlier too, and actually Daniel had a similar enum in his solution earlier we saw, but essentially I just chose like the fields that made sense to me. You could go in and you could add something like lookup fields. I know there are people in the GitHub repository now that are looking into adding like user fields and lookup fields. I wanted my first version to be, I don't want to say SharePoint less, but I wanted it to be something that essentially could function outside of SharePoint. Right now, the only like real connection there is that I use PnPjs to store it into a document library. You could call any API with that data and store it somewhere else. Yeah. Let's move along and look at some code. I will go ahead and I will open up a Visual Studio Code over here. So I'm trying this thing called Code Tour for the first time, so bear with me here. The first thing I wanted to show you is React hooks, which is something I've been playing more and more with, and I really like. So I built a hook that I called useObject that is like a generic hook. And essentially what this allows me to do is when I'm setting the state, so it's the good old, like if you're building class components, you use set state. Every time you have to do that for an object, you have to do the spread operator first. And I'm essentially doing that like packaged away here. So whenever I'm changing something in my state, I can simply say change, and then this is the field ID or the field value that the value on my object that I want to change, and the new value. I do a bit more zoom here just in case. So that's something that I really like about using these React hooks. This was one of the first projects where I really like put it to use and like tried forcing myself to do it. That's just a little like thing that I thought was pretty neat as I was looking over the code. So the entire rendering of the form when it is in like fill mode is less than 100 lines of code. When I started working on this project, I was imagining it like, I guess, being several thousand lines of code. So I was quite surprised when I looked over it and saw there was 97 lines of code. So the internal names here, we talked about those earlier that are like mapping. They are just a random ID. From the property pane of the solution, you can actually edit the whole schema. So you could give those IDs that you want yourself if you needed it for a API you're developing yourself. Or if you wanted two fields to edit the same value, you could go ahead and edit that in the JSON schema, and you'd be off to the races. The next thing that I've played with in the solutions that I really liked is the context API. This is something that I've been using for a little bit, but I don't see a lot of people using, and I thought I'd shout it out just like how cool this is. So essentially, you create a context like you would create any other React element. I'm creating this at the root, and I'm giving it my my web part context and a provider that I'm building. And because if children is my my form, then anywhere in the component hierarchy from here on and down, I'll be able to use that thing. So I can just go ahead and I can, oh, that's where that goes. I can go ahead and I can say React use context here. And then I can get the provider, and that's available for me. And I could do this 50 components down, essentially saving me from that classic prop drilling we sometimes see in solutions that are based on class components, where you're passing a prop like the entire way down just to get it available at the root. Especially if you're using the PnP React reusable controls, a lot of those want your context, which you might not have passed through all your other components. This is an easy way to like share that down. Yeah. And there's the usage of it because I extracted it up here. And then another thing I wanted to shout out that I don't use that often and I thought was pretty cool in this way is the display mode property that is from your, it's available in your like web part file. You can see which kind of mode the page is in, which is how I do the switching up. When you publish the page, it's displayed in one way, and when you go ahead and edit it, it's displayed in another way. That's about it for what I wanted to call out in the code. If there are any questions, I'll be around in the chat to answer those as well. Oh, that went back a page. Yeah, then I just wanted to round out my presentation with a few things that I thought might be cool to add later to the solution, or if you feel like it, you can go ahead and do that. So the first one is I wanted it to be able to create a SharePoint list and set up the fields instead of doing a JSON file somewhere. That sounds like Daniel's solution from earlier might actually be a great way to do that, because you could provision those like lists really easily. I'll look up user fields. Michaela over on GitHub said that she would look into that. I don't know if she's gotten around to it yet, but it would be pretty neat to do. Another thing is right now the fields are stuck in the order you put them in there. You're unable to move them later, which is a bit annoying. But I figured that it would be really awesome, like to be able to drag and drop those around like you can with, for instance, the quick link web part. And required fields. Right now, I don't have any validation that you've actually filled in the fields you're doing when you're like submitting the form. That's something that would make a lot of sense. So you could force people to at least fill out some of the fields. But I also haven't gotten around to that. Yeah, and then that's about it. Again, my name is Toft. You can find me over on X or elsewhere. I'm on most of the socials. Yeah, thank you for listening to what I have to say. I'll share some links in the chat. First one being that Microsoft, the blog post about the list update, link to the sample, and a link to where you can find these slides after this session is done. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for listening to what I had to say.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. And thank you to all our presenters. It was a great call. Really appreciate it. Dee did a great job on your first one here. Really appreciate it. Hope to see you back. And then on a more serious note, has anyone noticed that foosball table is just very poorly positioned? How could anyone play that in a hallway there? Sorry, I know that that's not important, but I had to stare at this screen during quite a bit here, and I just want to point out that this doesn't make any sense. Meeting in a hallway, got a foosball table. What's going on? All right. Anyway, let's keep going here. And let's take a look here. If you liked this call, let us know. If you hated this call, I guess you can let us know that too. But this is more than just feedback in terms of like how much did you like the call, how much did you hate the call. You can also submit ideas here, things you'd like to see, format changes, all that kind of stuff. If you want me to, regularly punch David Warner in the face, I could do that. That would be awesome. And then let's take a look here. So also check out our Discord server. So if you are like me and you are an old man and you are scared of this, the best way is just to try it out and get in here and see what the kids are up to. Heck, if you're already over on X, right? What's the harm in joining Discord as well? So this is a great spot to do a lot of the chatting, ask questions directly. There's a community involvement. That is the best place to ask your questions rather than this chat. After the call, this chat continues to notify everybody, so please don't continue to write in this chat. Head over to Discord. That's a great spot for it. David usually has some spots to ask questions directly to the presenters as well, which I'm sure he will post in here at some point. And then finally, when you do see the recording come across here, you won't be able to click it. Neither will I, because we are not Microsoft employees, but they are posted within 24 hours on YouTube. The full call and then the individual demos will be broken up as well. So if you saw something today you want to share, you'll have a great opportunity to do that. So check it out. And that's about it for us today. Thanks, everybody. See you next week. Woo! Woo!